And we each share from our books, and we discuss holidays that happen this month or any month. And we're going to be doing this through December. So we welcome you to this reading, and welcome back if you've come before. And we hope that you'll join us every month. And we'll talk about who our guest author for June is going to be at the end of the program. So I'm on Substack. I share a story of the day, a photo story, because my stories start with visuals, on Substack, Instagram, and Facebook. And everybody else, why don't you say where you can be found?
Hadley?
Sure. So I'm on all socials, so mainly on Facebook. You can find me on there all the time, but Insta, BookBub, I'm everywhere. You look, just Google me, you'll find me.
And I am on Facebook and Instagram at Ms. Tonya Todd, and on YouTube, which is where we are right now, on YouTube Live. And Amanda, you have a place to share where everyone can stay abreast of everything you're doing. You can share it now too if you like.
Sure. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but also I think I have a website where you can contact me directly, and a monthly newsletter that I send out.
Yes. And what is everyone's favorite part of your newsletter?
So I have a pet turtle. Her name is Lenore. And every month I do a little recommended reads. Well, Lenore, I should say, recommends a book. I think that is the most popular part of it.
That's fun. That's lots of fun. Well, I'll get the program started. So my book, my most recent story collection, is called Gay All Year. And it is, surprisingly, 12 stories, one for each month. And I write pretty consistently about how men meet men and start a relationship, because I'm optimistic and I believe that anytime, anywhere, any age, you can fall in love. So also each story is keyed to a holiday or event that month. So my May story is Someone I Didn't Know. And that's about two men who remember high school bullying that one went through. And the holiday is Mother's Day. And I will read you a little bit from Someone I Didn't Know. I decided not to go home for Mother's Day, even though my sister invited me out to Douglaston. I opted instead to spend the day in the Metropolitan Museum of Art, but avoided Madonnas, Pietas, and all mother and child scenes painted down the centuries. As I gazed at the muscles of a marble Heracles, a vaguely familiar voice behind me said, "Hello, Dave." I turned, smile on automatic, and saw someone I didn't know. Whoever he was, though, he was good-looking in a deliberately rough trade kind of way, with the de rigueur 2 days' growth of beard covering strong jaws and jutting chin. Full red lips pouted provocatively at me, and sunglasses hid his eyes. A tight yellow shirt, opened several buttons down the chest, displayed a deep tan and deeper cleavage. Jeans, form-fitting in the crotch and thighs, covered and accented the stranger's own heavy musculature. Heracles had a rival. "It's Bruce," the stranger said, removing the shades. "Bruce Sonnenschein from high school?" The name evoked memories which the man in front of me did not. I repeated the name uncertainly, and hurt appeared in the dark blue eyes. I recognized him now. "Bruce Sonnenschein," I repeated the second time, still trying to reconcile the present person with the past. The fey voice was gone. So were the fluttering hands and overly coy pursing of lips. This Bruce Sonnenschein was butch to the nth degree. The man in front of me put his hand on my shoulder in a consoling way. He said, "I'm sorry your mother is dead," and I frowned. If I lived another 100 years, I never wanted to hear that sentence again. But I liked his hand on my shoulder. It did feel consoling. Thank you, I managed to say. How did you know? He dropped his hand and shrugged. My mom still keeps in touch with some people in Farmingdale. Would you like a coffee? Or brunch? The segue was abrupt, but his tone and look said he was confident I'd say yes. There's a cafeteria downstairs, he mentioned. No, I answered curtly, coming back to myself. I didn't need that depressing place with its manufactured light and sickly color, especially that day, and anyway, I wasn't sure I wanted to be with Bruce Sonnenschein. Seeing him again made all the guilt rise up in me. Okay, I said finally, but not there. Where? He asked. On Madison, maybe? Do you still have your sticker? In case you want to come back. He smirked, clearly messaging his total disbelief anyone would leave him for a museum. He touched the proof of payment situated on the corner of my chest, which activated my fourth chakra. Wherever you want, he said in a slightly pleading voice. I know a place on Madison, I said in a rush. That made him smile, which made me glad. Now at least I had done something that made him happy. He pivoted and walked toward the exit in long, manful strides. My eyes followed him before my legs did. Excuse me. I remembered walking behind him down long high school hallways, thinking the same lustful thoughts I was thinking now. At the exit to the gallery, he looked back, smirked again as if he had read my thoughts, and waited while I caught up. We walked side by side to the main entrance, down the steps and across Fifth towards Madison. The hostess at the cafe smiled appreciatively at Bruce and led us to a window table. When we were seated and our drinks had been ordered from a waiter who couldn't take his eyes off Bruce, I enthusiastically stated the obvious. You look terrific. You do too, he replied, but then you are always so handsome. His voice sounded wistful, and his eyes had a yearning in them I couldn't look at. I remembered that yearning. I had looked away back then, too. Have you been home lately? I asked, feeling my cowardice past and present. You mean Farmingdale? He sneered. He draped one arm over the back of the chair. I don't think of that place as home. I only lived there our senior year. When I went to college, I got an apartment in Manhattan. It surprised me to hear that Bruce had gone to college. I don't know why. I couldn't remember if he'd been a good, bad, or indifferent student. We only had one class together, and that was PE. He definitely wasn't any good there. It was where the teasing began. Jokes about his voice and mannerisms, questions about his sexuality, intimated violence. Never anything physical, but still relentless. I had watched it all, heard it all, and done nothing. Thank you. So, just that I don't usually write autobiographically, but there was a Bruce in high school, and he was my friend, and he was bullied. So I took a little autobiography. So the holiday I want to talk a little bit about is International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. And it is just happened. It was yesterday. But I think this is a good holiday to celebrate all year, as many holidays are. So we're going to have a contest, and you can win a prize from each of us. This month's contest is that you tell us in chat, you write in chat 2 or 3 sentences, the best advice your mother ever gave you. And then each of us will pick our favorite and we'll award a prize. So my prize is a contribution to the Trevor Project, which is a charity against bullying of queer people. And it will be made in your name. So thank you, and put your thinking caps on. And now I'll toss it to Tonya.
That's a very lovely prize. I like that one.
Thank you.
So my project is 52 Love. As we said earlier, we all have calendar projects. Mine is nonfiction, but it's still love-based because I give one intimacy tip per week, hence the 52, and they are love tips with little love bites in between to help you practice with your partner. And today's love tip is piece together peace. So a lot of these were written during the pandemic, and that pandemic did inspire some robust resurgence in indoor activities. So if your mind flew to the same naughty thought as mine, this week's tip might perplex you. Rather than bedroom gymnastics, I recommend something that works well without the need to undress: a complex jigsaw puzzle. As with most of my tips, clothing is optional. So jigsaw puzzles offer a chance to break from binge watching, disengage from the digital world, and escape external stressors. Unplugging from screens and devices is important for mental health. And that's true even when we're not in a pandemic. That's just something that we need to be practicing, period, especially in times of duress. But with that in mind, clear a spot for two, lead your partner to the playing field, and spread your pieces as you relax and join them together. Solving puzzles improves mental health and physical health. It increases concentration while keeping your brain busy and stimulated, free from negative input. Puzzle solving provides a sense of restoring order to the chaos we're facing in our lives, a sense of accomplishment when so little is in our control. Alone, this is a small victory that can work wonders on our psyches, but together it builds a foundation for a strong partnership. Just as puzzles improve your memory by reinforcing existing connections between your brain cells, joint puzzle play reinforces the connections between you and your partner. Solving a jigsaw puzzle engages both the intuitive and creative sides of your brain. While you improve your attention span and problem-solving skills, you sharpen your brains as a couple. Subsequently, this exercise will strengthen your bond as a problem-solving team. A large puzzle may last for days, allowing you to connect throughout the week. Use this one-on-one time to encourage creativity and communication. Chat about childhood memories, current challenges, or future plans. See where the conversation leads you. If there are elusive pieces, employ a bit of healthy competition while you work toward the same goal. No losers in this game. And this focused activity will serve as a stress reliever that keeps you fully in the moment. Working toward a common goal strengthens you and your partner as a team. Sit side by side, across from each other, or plant yourself in his lap. The point is, you're working together. Everyday worries will evaporate as you meditate on your joint task. Soon, peace and tranquility will replace the day's concerns and draw you closer. And like playing games in week 6, if you can add a sexy twist by removing clothing with each complicated milestone, it might lead to those other robust indoor activities. So that's my tip for this week. And the holiday that I'm talking about is National Nurses Day. So we happen to have a nurse in our presence. Our guest author is a nurse, so she is one of the inspirations for why I chose this one. But it's also just an important day that I think that we should remember. National Nurses Day is observed every year on May 6th to commemorate the important role that nurses play in our lives every year. And it marks the beginning of National Nursing Week, which ends on May 12th, the birthday of Florence Nightingale. National Nursing Week was inspired by her work as an English social reformer and she's considered to be the founder of modern nursing as we know it. Her work gained her notoriety during the Crimean War, where she dedicated herself to taking care of wounded soldiers. She often did her rounds to check on patients at night, which earned her the moniker of the Lady with the Lamp. In 1953, a proposal to honor nurses nationally was rejected by President Eisenhower. However, in 1954, the first unofficial National Nurses Week was observed from October 11th to the 16th, marking the 100th anniversary of her mission to Crimea. It wasn't until 1974 that we officially proclaimed National Nurses Week in the United States, and in 1982, May 6th was designated as National Nurses Day, and in 1990, the American Nurses Association expanded the celebration to National Nursing Week. The way we typically observe it is, I'm reading this. You'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Amanda, but nurses are regarded the most important element and support in the medical world. Without them, doctors would not be able to do their jobs. So there are often events like banquets and seminars organized to bring awareness to the vital role that nurses have, and that nurses are given gifts from their employers and from patients. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, that does. I'll add one really fun thing. Sometimes we'll have like a white day where nurses wear white scrubs the way that, they did 50 years ago. And
Yes.
some of the older nurses I love to see, they'll in their old nurses hats because again, years ago they would wear nursing caps, and
Right.
I just love that. It's a fun historical throwback.
Amanda, what's your specialty? What is your nursing specialty?
Most recently I was doing infection prevention.
Thank you.
Yes, while I was writing this, she was help fighting the good fight while writing. Yes, she was helping out during the pandemic because the call for that sort of thing was essential. So thank you for your service, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will very quickly share my prize today. Because my piece was about puzzles, my prize is going to be a 52 love puzzle that you can do with your partner. And I don't know if you can see the lines in the puzzle. They didn't come out very dark, but they're there. And then one last thing before we go to Hadley, I want to just remind everyone about the end of year prize. So the prizes that we're giving away today, that's for today's question. But for the entire series from January all the way until December, we are keeping tabs on the people who are most engaged in the chat, people who are participating and showing up and giving us answers and just generally giving to us. We want to give back to you by gifting you with a library of all of the authors we've had featured on Time with Love for the entire year. So please tune in each month so that you can be considered for that prize. And now we get to Amanda's book to that lot.
Thank you, Amanda.
My pleasure.
And with that, I will hand it over to Hadley.
Awesome. Thank you.
Let's hear about our sexy bachelor this month.
First, I want to say, Tonya, I know that puzzle piece or that tip that you gave is awesome. I speak with, I don't even know what I call him, but kind of an acquaintance or whatever. And we talk while he's doing puzzles all the time. And he says it calms his anxiety and stuff. So we do share that. And then Amanda, when it comes to the nurses, thank you for all you do. I was actually in the hospital during the pandemic, and it was the nurses who helped out a lot during that time. So I appreciate the work that you do. So thank you for that. So when it comes to my series and everything I have going on for Mr. May, no, I'm not talking about Rick in this right now. But I am talking about the Bachelor of the Month series, where each book highlights a new bachelor being profiled by Forrester magazine and my favorite journalist, Genesis Jones. The stories are full of heat, healing, and a whole lot of heart. So today I'm sharing Mr. May, it's a deeply personal installment of the series that ties into two powerful themes we're honoring this month, which is Mental Health Awareness Month and the National Day and Week of Prayer. So Mr. May introduces us to our hot rocker, Hayden Church. He's a global rock star in the spotlight, and Chef Evangeline Demetriou, who is his personal chef, whose quiet strength once brought him peace. He actually calls her Angel, which is the middle of her name, Evangeline. He calls her Angel. And now after years apart, they've reunited by surprise. They don't know that each of them are coming back into each other's life, and that chemistry is still undeniable between the two of them. But life has changed. It's been 15 years. So emotionally and physically, he's exhausted. He's had enough. He's making a career change and all of that. And she's moved on to become a very, where she was a personal chef. She has a popular podcast, and she's doing all kinds. She's kind of a celebrity chef. But she's still guarding her peace and navigating her own career. And the book is more about just fame and second chancing, but it's knowing when to pause, breathe, pray, and fight for what matters in relationships. So I'm going to read a little piece of this book that's coming from both of their points of view, one from Evangeline or Angel, and then next from our rocker, Mr. Church, Mr. May. So this is a piece from Mr. May. So wait, when did you ask him to meet? Shanae asked as we finished cleaning up. for the evening after I said goodnight to Hayden. Tomorrow, I replied, feeling a mix of disappointment and confusion swirling inside of me. I don't know how I feel about it. He does realize you'll be here in Chicago tomorrow night, and he's off to the next city in the tour, right? Shanae, my sous chef, points out, her brow furrowing in concern. Yes, he knows that, and he's headed to LA, or at least I think, which is why this hurts. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't mean to mock him, but I can't feel disappointed. I can't help but feeling disappointed. I thought we had a moment, shared a connection. For once in these 15 years, I felt seen by him. All those times I stood in that kitchen cooking for him, feeling like just another member of the staff. But tonight, the way he spoke made me feel like I was more to him. But then he said those words, I'll see you tomorrow, like you'd say to your neighbor or something if you'd see them. Oh, I'll see you tomorrow, then good morning or good afternoon or good night. It was just a blow. A reminder of back then when he was on tour, and no matter the connection we shared through food or conversation and even intimacy, it was always on to the next day, the next city, the next thing grabbing his attention. As I take off my chef coat and toss it to the laundry bin, I remind myself why I'm doing these pop-ups, to meet new people, share my cuisine, and hopefully make meaningful connections. Hayden will be off to the next city tomorrow, but I'll still be here in the Windy City. His casual dismissal brings back memories of those fleeting moments on tour where everything else seems to matter more than me. Did he really notice me too? Did he even mean what he said? I want to believe him, but I don't know him well enough to make that decision. But that kiss spoke volumes, saying it all the things he never said back then, but all the things I needed to hear. Switching to Hayden's point of view, he's thinking about the next day now. He has an Australian accent, by the way. I'm not going to try that right now. Just think of it in your head, though. So from Hayden's point of view, I don't know why Mick and Genesis chatting is getting on my nerves, but it is. My mood darkens further as they keep talking. Genesis, with her laptop open, typing away, only adds to my irritation. Can't we have a bit of peace and quiet? I mutter under my breath, shooting Genesis a glare. She looks up, trying to reassure me. Hayden, I'm just finishing up some notes from the last night. It won't take long. I sigh, my annoyance not easing. The flight attendant hands us each a mimosa and some breakfast food, but even the sight of the food does little to improve my mood. Mick, mate, what was the point of that reunion with Angel? I asked, frustrated, evidence in my tone. Now I'm bloody distracted, and I've got 3 more tour dates before I can even think about seeing her again. Mick leans back in his seat, looking thoughtful. Look, Hayden, we thought it would be a good surprise. You seemed happy to see her. Happy, I scoff. Sure, for a moment, but now I can't get her out of my head, and it's messing with my focus. Genesis chimes in, her tone soothing but firm. Hayden, maybe this distraction is what you needed. You've been running on fumes for weeks now. Seeing Angel might be the thing that keeps you going. I rub my temples, feeling the weight of exhaustion. I get that, but it doesn't make it any easier. I want to see her again now, but I can't do that until the tour is over. Mick gives me a sympathetic look. We'll figure it out, mate. Just hang in there. Genesis nods in agreement, and in that moment, try to rest. You'll need it. So that's a little excerpt from Mr. May. So as I was saying, this is mental and spiritual health reflections here. So Hayden's journey hits close to home for me because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I personally understand that. It's like, what it's like to keep going and showing up for the world when you're exhausted inside and out. And that's exactly where Hayden is. Mental Health Month is observed. It's observed every May. It raises awareness of the struggles we keep hidden. Burnout, anxiety, emotional isolation, sometimes we go into. But then there's also some hope here. It's also the National Day of Prayer, Thursday, May 2nd this year, and it calls to lift our lives, our families, our relationships, lift that all up to God. And the National Week of Prayer reminds us to intercede, not just for others, but for ourselves. And healing starts when we get honest with God and with ourselves about these emotional struggles that we have, may it be in our relationships, familial, friendships, romantic, whatever. And in Mr. May, Hayden is a breaking point. He's there. He's questioning his path, he's emotionally drained. But in his reconnection with his angel, there's a turning point, a moment of faith, a whisper that says, maybe I'm ready to show up differently. And that's what prayer does. That's how love does. So when we see Mr. May in more than just a second chance romance, it's the emotional unraveling and rebuilding of two people carrying past wounds and present pressures. The story reminds us that love and healing both require honesty, inner work, and the courage to show up, especially when it's hard. So, because I believe that kind of healing of love, I'll be giving away a free ebook of Mr. May to one lucky winner today. I want to thank you all for listening to me. Remember, don't just pray for love, prepare for that kind that sees your scars and stays anyway. So that's that.
All right, because of that comment we had about him having his shirt off to do all of that, I have to say that when you were saying that, it starts unraveling, and then the picture of, unravel that, you know.
That is.
I'm just saying, you have my attention, and thank you for having something deeper within the book, other than just that surface level abs.
Well, definitely take you to church on this one.
Yeah,
Altar of the abs.
Oh, hallelujah.
Well, thank you for listening to that. We're going to go over to our guest, Amanda.
Yes, Amanda is here because she has a story that has a different type of love. We talked about how this is the same month for Mother's Day, and the love, there's lots of different types of love in her story, but one that particularly spoke to a lot of her readers was the maternal love of your character. So please share a bit about your story, what inspired you to write it, and then we'd love for you to read some of it.
Yeah, thank you. And Hadley, I loved that excerpt. I love a second chance romance, so I can't wait to read that.
Thank you.
So yeah, my book is The Medicine Woman of Galveston. It is set at the turn of the 20th century, and the book follows Dr. Tonya Hadley. She's a trailblazing female physician whose promising career is derailed by a tragic mistake. Now, a single mother, she's struggling to support her son with Down syndrome. She reluctantly joins a traveling medicine show, using her hard-earned medical license to lend legitimacy to a troupe of misfits and snake oil cures. As they journey across the country, Tonya finds unexpected kinship among the performers, even as she's pulled deeper into the showman's schemes. But everything changes when the troupe arrives in Galveston, Texas, just as the deadliest hurricane in American history strikes. Facing disaster, Tonya must rediscover her faith in medicine, in others, and in herself. It's a story about courage, redemption, and the enduring bonds we create, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And the section that I am reading today, first, just a quick introduction into Tonya and her background, and then when we first meet Tonya and Tonya's son, Toby. But it begins first, Tonya, she is a physician, but now she is working at a corset factory. Tonya's head whipped up at the sound, high-pitched and urgent. She swiped a greasy hand across her forehead, pushing aside straggly, sweat-dampened hair, and turned from the oily gears of the tempering machine. The sound belonged to the new girl 3 stations down. She stood, writhing and wailing beside her machine. Tonya took a single step toward her before catching sight of the blood. The girl's sleeve had caught in the machine's gears. Her arm, or what was left of it, was twisted amid the metal, flashes of bone and muscle visible between bits of shredded shirt sleeve. Tonya managed another step forward. A tourniquet was needed, high on the arm, until she could assess the extent of the girl's injury. A ligation, perhaps, judging from the pulsing spatter of blood. She'd need a blade in case she couldn't find the end of the vessel after exploring the wound. A needle and thread. Cauterization might be necessary. Tonya's feet had stopped. Stuck, heavy, cold. Her pulse sped. Her vision, only moments ago sharp, lost focus. The blood, she could still see it spurting, but the girl's cries grew distant. Tonya closed her eyes and tried to breathe despite the tightness in her throat. When she opened them, the factory, with its steam-choked air and whirring machines, had vanished. So at that moment, Tonya falls into a flashback. She has what we would call PTSD today, but it was not, known by that name at the time, or really very understood. And then we are moving forward to the end of the day. And so the only tool she has against these flashbacks is just trying to stay grounded in the present. So she's counting the sidewalk cracks. Her last stop was the A&P. She clutched the handles of her bag with both hands and counted 79 sidewalk cracks before arriving. Another stinking line awaited her inside, causing her stomach to twist and breath to quicken. She'd much rather skip the store for home, but she'd promised to stop. Inside, cans and boxes and jars lined the floor-to-ceiling shelves. Coffee, tea, sugar, baking powder, condensed milk. Nearly anything one wanted could be found here. Her eyes snagged on the boxes of packaged tea. She'd been brewing the same leaves at home for a week now, but she couldn't justify the expense, not even after a day like today. When she reached the counter, the clerk asked for her list. Tonya shook her head with a stab of embarrassment and pointed to the jar of penny candy. 1 piece, please. Before reaching home, she passed another dozen sidewalk cracks and twice caught her fingers twirling around a newly plucked hair. Home was really too grand of a word for the 2-room flat she rented on the 4th floor of a decades-old tenement in the lower quarter of the city, especially considering the fine Italiante home she'd grown up in. Sometimes she'd think about it, the plush oriental carpets, the richly lit rooms, the soft upholstered furniture, as she trudged up the creaky stairs to her flat, swallowing a tinge of regret before opening the door. But tonight, the spare, drafty rooms with peeling wallpaper and rotting floorboards would be a welcome reprieve from the day's horrors. She opened the door to near darkness, the last rays of evening light retreating through the room's lone window. Tonya shuffled forward, feeling her way to the table, and lit the oil lamp. The flame flared, then settled into a weak but steady glow. A glance around the room revealed Mrs. Harsnatch seated in one of the 2 ladder-back chairs, her feet propped on a stack of Tonya's books, the daily paper draped across her lap. Her mouth gaped open, and her chest rose with the steady rhythm of a slumber. Otherwise, the room was empty. Panic flared inside her. Toby! She dropped her bag and wheeled around, crossing to the adjoining room. Toby! The answering silence struck her like ice water. She stumbled in her haste, bracing herself on the door jamb. Her eyes swept the room. Nothing. Her breath hitched. Then, beside the bed, a flash of movement. Her son looked up from his building blocks and grinned at her. Tonya hurried over and knelt beside him, wiping away an errant tear. Of course he was here, safe and sound. Where else would he be? How foolish to worry. She brushed the hair from his forehead. What were you doing, playing here in the dark? Making a house. Didn't you hear Mama come in? He shrugged and turned back to his blocks. You gave me quite a fright. At least you could have done is answer when I called. The words came out sharper than she'd intended. Toby's smile fell. He dashed the lopsided tower he'd been building, sending the blocks scattering. Tonya winced and pulled her to him. Though he was small for his age, as most children with his condition were, he barely fit in her lap anymore. I'm sorry, darling. I'm sorry, he repeated. He nestled his head against her neck, and Tonya wrapped her arms around him. For the first time since the accident that afternoon, she could fully breathe. He'd always been that way, her anchor, her joy. She held him close until he grew restless and wriggled free. Look what I've got for you. She pulled the small piece of candy from the pocket of her jacket. Toby clapped and reached for it. Not until after supper. She kissed him on the nose and stood. Wash up while I say goodbye to Mrs. Harsnatch. So that's just, toward the beginning section and the introduction to the character and her son, Toby.
Wonderful.
Thank you. I suppose I'll share the gift that I have, or the giveaway that I have. It's related to International Tea Day, which is, May 21st. It's my very favorite tea, Chamomile Compassion, from the wonderful New Mexico Tea Company. I also wanted to give a shout out, though. Rick and I were chatting before we logged on about teachers. And the same week that it is Nurses Week, it is also Teacher Appreciation Week. And I know we have some teachers in the chat. Rick was mentioning a teacher who really influenced him. I certainly had a teacher in 10th grade, Mr. Castillo, who definitely influenced my love of the written word. So yeah, just a shout out to all of our teachers who really make such an incredible difference in our lives.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Thank you, Mrs. Sheets.
Do you see the comment, Amanda? What a visually stunning and great description in your story.
Thank you, Joe.
I will I will attest to that. I gifted her book to someone, which I often do because she is such an amazing writer, that I should have mentioned you're a former nurse because you were able to retire because you're such a brilliant writer. And now you get to do this all the time, which is wonderful. Congratulations on that. But I gifted this book to someone who read it in like 2 days. I want to say it was like 2 sittings. This is a young mother who has no business sitting and reading that much, but she just drank it up and then asked me to teach her how to write a screenplay because it needs to be a movie. That's the kind of inspiration your writing has. So yes, I don't think that you can get much higher praise than someone like putting their life on hold when they really do not have that kind of time to do it. And then, hey, let me learn a new skill because more people need to know about this story and not everyone will read.
Tonya had mentioned that story to me before, and it always, like, you know, in those moments where you really doubt yourself, you're like, I can't do this. I think, well, someone thinks
for someone to want to write it as a screenplay, that means that they were visualizing it, and that speaks to those details that Joe mentioned. And then there's another comment. Thank you, Amanda. I always learn so much about history from your books. I could actually feel the room by the description. And I've read this book. I've heard you read this multiple times. And still, when you talk about it and you share about it, I get chills. Like, it's just, this is such a beautiful story.
Thank you.
And now we're going to move to interviewing Amanda. Each of us is going to ask a question, and then we'll open it up to the audience you can put your questions in chat, and we'll ask Amanda for you.
And I apologize.
Hadley?
Please let me know if you can hear me because my connection, it's kind of windy and stormy outside. So connection has been spotty for me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Perfect. So as part of the Bachelor series, you know that I have, it's a magazine. So my journalist, Genesis Jones, is always interviewing these bachelors. So I'm asking it from her voice, this question that I have for you about your character, Tusha. So she goes through a lot emotionally, you know, physically, even spiritually, but through it all, there seems to be a strong theme of healing and finding hope again in your books, Amanda. So what made you want to explore that journey, and how do you personally define what healing looks like?
I'm a big believer in the power of hope, and my novels don't necessarily have the same like happy ever after ending of a traditional romance. They all end on a note of hope and new beginnings. The theme of healing, it kind of bubbled up, I think, subconsciously for me. I was writing the book at the tail end of the pandemic, and I began to think about, consciously and I think unconsciously too, about the trauma that healthcare workers sometimes face. And that definitely, I think, influenced Tusha's journey. And as the story took shape, I really wanted to make sure that I portrayed healing in an honest and relatable way. In the story, Tusha, as I mentioned, she has PTSD and also trichotillomania. And these aren't things that you just like wake up one day and you're healed, it's gone. These are issues that Tusha will continue to deal with even after the last page of the novel. But my hope in the story was that you see Tusha making incremental progress toward healing herself, and that you have a sense that now she has more tools with which to deal with some of her past and some of her issues. And also, I think most importantly, that she has the support of other people to help her with that. And I think that's very much, to me, what healing looks like, is that, you know, it's a slow, a measured process, and something that we can't always achieve on our own, that we do need the support of our loved ones.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's wonderful. I love the aspect of hope. I tried in my writing to end on a hopeful note because I think so many people feel hopeless. My question is about found family and the heart. Found family is something, sadly or gladly, both, familiar to queer people because too many times our blood family rejects us because of our sexuality. So Tusha may not be a traditional mom, but she really steps into a nurturing, protecting role, especially with the people she meets along the way. Can you talk a little bit about what chosen family means to you and how that shaped the heart of the story that you've written?
Yeah, this found family, chosen family, it's something that appears in many of my books. And I think that's because it's been an important force in my own life. My husband and I, gosh, 18 years ago now, we moved to Las Vegas where we didn't have any family and knew almost no one in town. And I was miserable. I was miserable here for the first several years. And then, speaking of today's question about what's the best advice your mother gave you, my mother-in-law said to me, she said, Amanda, you've got to bloom where you're planted. And now at some point that just sunk in. And slowly I was able to find the people here in Las Vegas who became family to me, who see the best in me and believe in me and lift me up. And that's what to me found family is. It's finding those people. And also I think working and cherishing and nurturing those bonds when you do find them and making sure that you're showing up for those people as well and supporting them too. And I think that's why that idea that sort of spills into my family, because, whether or not you're apart from your biological family, you're estranged from your biological family, there are people in this world who will love you and they will love you for exactly who you are. And I want people to believe in that and to see that on the page and know that they can find that for themselves.
That's really wonderful. And that's such a good message for everyone. Everyone has found family and hopefully biological family.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And she is just full of amazing advice, isn't she? Like, look how much she has inspired you and who you are and what you've become.
Tusha was a special character. She was fun to write.
Well, I do want to remind the audience about today's question because each of us has a prize to offer to one winner of our choosing. Our question today is, what is the best advice that your mother gave you, or your mother-in-law, if that works, stepmothers, any maternal figure? And while you come up with that question or that advice, if you have not already answered it, I will ask my last question to Amanda. Tusha is a woman working in medicine at a time where that wasn't easy. She's smart and flawed, but real. What inspired you to write her this way? And did you come across anything really surprising while researching women in medicine during that era?
As a reader, I love the everyday hero. I'm not necessarily so drawn to like that mythical, godlike hero. And so I think that's why I write that type of characters in my novel. Because certainly, we all have flaws. I certainly have flaws. And I find it so inspiring when I read a book and I see a character who, through the course of the novel, is slowly progressing to be a better person. And so that definitely influences my writing. In terms of surprises that I found when I was researching, of course, early women physicians, they faced just enormous obstacles, which is not, I think, surprising to anyone. But one thing that did surprise me was the kind of herky-jerky, 2 steps forward, 1 step back nature of the progress of women in medicine. The first woman in America who got her medical degree was Elizabeth Blackwell. That was 1849. Then fast forward, 20 years, you still have less than 1% of physicians who are women. But by 1900, that number has risen to almost 6%, which is a lot, in the context. And I think what really surprised me then is it's not until 1970, so 55 years ago, that we reach more than 7% of practicing physicians being women. So just, it took a really long time. But now almost 40% of practicing physicians are women. More women than men are graduating from medical school. So I think we are approaching something that looks a little bit more like equality. And I in today's moment especially, I think that gives me hope, because sometimes we feel like we see progress in important social issues, and then we see that progress eroding. And it's a reminder to me that unfortunately it is not always this straight trajectory forward, that sometimes we do backslide, but that doesn't mean that we won't eventually get there.
May, a month of mental health, mothers, and hope. Well, I do believe we have some questions in the chat, or maybe comments in the chat for Amanda. And yes, please, we're opening up to the audience to ask questions of Amanda. So we have Amanda, the purchase of the penny candy when Tusha yearns for tea for herself is such a great example of showing, not telling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Showing multiple things too, because you're showing the character and you're showing the world building too. So great job with that.
Yeah, thank you.
What were you saying?
When I think about mothers, not necessarily mothers, but when I think about mothers, I think about just how much self-sacrifice there is. And of course, that's such a small thing, right? No tea versus candy. But that is part of what I was hoping to show there.
It doesn't feel like a small thing in the grand, like that tea, because the way you said, even after today, because that tea could have been the thing that just gave her the boost to get through the next ordeal. So it feels like a small thing, but it can do something huge for your morale.
Yeah.
And she gave it up for her child.
And life is mainly small things. And I think they become large things.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true, Rick.
They add up. Yeah, that's a great point, Rick. And then we have another comment. I loved the description of how medicine used to be practiced in this book and what people believed.
Oh, thank you. I think being a nurse, I love to learn about medical history because it is so interesting to think about a time before antibiotics, to think about a time before our understanding of germs had really come to, the forefront, before anesthesia. Like, I don't know, there are all these things. And then the way that people, the modalities that they had access to, I think is very interesting. And snake oil is its own interesting, I think.
Another thing I loved about Medicine Woman is that Tusha isn't judgy of any of the misfits in the medicine show, except Huey, who deserves it. And this is the first. They aren't rejected. So that's great.
Yeah. Like I said, we all have flaws, and I want people to be able to exist in that, like in the world, in that way, imperfect, right?
And sometimes being different isn't a flaw. Like, it's just
absolutely
a difference.
Right.
It's just different. Yeah.
And you show that very well. So another comment, Medicine Woman was so good. I read it all night in one greedy gulp. Highly recommend.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the fan club showing up, but we understand why, because your work is amazing.
So we
don't have any other comments? We're moving on to the advice, Joe?
We're going to review our contestants.
Yes. All right, let's have it.
My mother always said, be who you want to be, never who they expect you to be. Wow.
That's a good one.
That is great advice.
Let the boy win 20% of the time. Stay hungry. Persist. Always give someone a second chance. That's nice.
That is nice.
Hadley, you want to read that one?
Sure. The best advice my mother gave me was nonverbal. No matter what happened, she kept going without complaining or whining. She was the strongest woman I ever know. That is lovely. I love that.
Yeah. So much of, I think, what our mothers show us is by example.
Role modeling.
Read that one.
Me? I'm sorry. Yes, I will.
You want to read the one on screen?
Sure. Wayne says, my mother was not one to give advice. I learned life lessons by observing her, and I can only hope that is why I am the person I am today.
Love it.
Love that. Yeah.
Yes, and I can attest that he is a lovely person. So
He is, isn't he? I want to share some advice my mother gave me. I mean, she really said this, but she said it in a much more refined way. She said, offer once and then take whatever you can get. So,
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I think that's good advice because so many people say, after you, Alphonse, no, you do it. Somebody has to make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
who
my
do we
mother
want?
told me it's okay to be the decider. You know, there's so many women are just like, oh, whatever you want, like let everyone else make decisions for them. She showed me that it's okay to be the decider, and I just am. I am in life. I'm the decider, and I'm okay with that. And if you're in my world, you need to be okay with it. And I'm also absolutely willing to share that you know, it can sometimes be a burden, like it's a mental burden on some people. But I've owned that that's okay. This is something I'm okay with making the decisions. Some people are, some people aren't. I'm also okay with other people making decisions. But rather than just making it a fight, I have accepted who I am, and it's okay to be the decider.
I would say the advice that I got from my mother that I really, it really hits home now, being that she's no longer with me, is when I would go to her about something, she would say, you know, I don't even know what to say about that, but what I will tell you is take it to God and pray about it. And now that she's not here, that's all I have left to do, which is why I was able to speak to that, you know, today. So yeah, that was advice my mother gave me.
But that was great advice. And you always have God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And you're right, Wayne. I have met your mother.
So shall we choose our winners?
Yes. It's a tough one this time, but I like the persist. Like, nevertheless, she persists. It's
Joe, could we see them just quickly again?
yeah.
That sounds poetic. Nevertheless, persist.
Yeah, I think I would like to give my prize to stay hungry and persist.
I like the nonverbal one.
And I liked the one what Wayne had said about observing, because as I mentioned, I think that so like our mothers are teaching us all the time by their actions and their silent strength.
And could I see them again? I'm sorry. I'm going to say the one to be yourself. Be who you want to be, never whom they expect you to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that too.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah.
It's a hard lesson to learn because so many times we're seeking approval of others, or we have to approve of ourselves first.
And you always feel like a disappointment because of what they are expecting, but just be who you are.
You can never please people 100% of the time. So it's a losing venture.
Yeah. So we have a question for Amanda. What's the question?
Deanna's asking if I traveled to Galveston for research. I did. I was lucky enough to be able to go and not only visit the archives and learn a lot about the storm in particular, the hurricane, but they also have a medical archive there. The medical school does. And so I was particularly looking for like what was happening, what were the doctors and nurses doing in the immediate aftermath of the storm, because so many people, were injured. And, and also I just love to be able to go to a place. I'm not from the South. I'm certainly not from an island. I've always lived in landlocked places. So I like to be able to like feel the weather. What is the air like? What does the water look like? Things like that. Being able to visit a place helps me, I think, get those details right in my story. And that's really important for readers who do live there. As a reader, I know it's off-putting when you read a book about your hometown and you're like, oh, that is nothing like where I live.
And they will tell you about it.
Yes. How many books have you read about Las Vegas where it's like, so you've never been, you've only seen it on TV?
So
now
unfortunately, we have to wrap up for today. But Amanda, why don't you let people know again how they can continue to ask you questions?
Yes. Thanks so much for everyone being here. And thank you guys so much for having me. I would love to stay connected. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And please hop over to my website where you can join my newsletter. Just comes once a month, or there I have a little contact me page, and I respond to everyone who emails me.
Thank you.
And anyone who won a prize today, and those of you giving prizes today, I can be the connector to make sure that the prizes get to the people who won the prizes. So just make sure you send your inquiries my way, and I will get everyone connected. And with that, we want to say thank you. You want to share who our guest is next month, Rick? And
next month, we're gathering on Sunday, June 15th, same time in your neighborhood. And our guest author will be Dominic Lim, whose most recent book is Karaoke Queen, and lots of fun. So please tune in.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope to see you next month.
See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.